we today is a special lectures. We open up for all students from VISTEC to join. We have a very special speakers who is now in Denmark. He is not in Thailand. He is in Denmark, and he is professor in the VISTEC University. VISTEC is going to be a world-class university in Thailand. And I expect that some of our students will be able to join after they graduate from here. Let me just briefly introduce Professor Poramate Manoonpong. Dr. Poramate is a professor of bio-inspired robotics at the School of Information Science and Technology in VISTEC at Rayong. And he also currently is in Denmark, joining the one university in the southern part of Denmark. I could not remember the name of the university, so later on, Ajahn Poramate is going to tell you. So with this, the topic of talk today will be the robot intelligence inspired by nature, and from nature to science and robotic technologies. So the floor is yours, Dr. Poramate, Professor Poramate. Go ahead.
Yes, so good afternoon. I believe this is like at 1 in Thailand, right? So good afternoon, everyone. And this is my pleasure to be here for giving your inspirations about robotics. Okay, so maybe I just share my screen and then we could see, maybe could you let me be a co-host such that I could share my screen.
Okay.
Yes.
But yeah, please.
So yeah, so today I'm gonna give you another aspect of robotics. Let me see if it works. Share some. Okay, so I believe you could see my screen now. Okay. Yep. So could you see my presentations?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So my name is Paramit Manoonpong. So currently I am a professor as a VISTEC or in Thailand is in Rayong or Wangjan. And at the same time, I run another 2 labs. So in total, I run now in total 3 labs in Thailand, in Denmark at the University of Southern Denmark, and also I have another group in China at Nanjing University of Astronautics in China. So today I will try to give you an idea about the robotics that basically it just come from my research from these 3 groups, and we will see how far we can go and if I could cover all like interesting aspect of all these 3 research groups. The idea behind this is that if you look at robots nowadays, we can see different type of robots. For example, you can see manipulator robot like this, and you could see the mobile robots, industrial mobile robots. Another type of robots become, like living creatures, especially, for example, this is very famous from Boston Dynamics, where they develop a kind of human-like robots. But today, I'm gonna give you another aspect of robotics where instead of having industrial like arm or the mobile robot like this or even humanoid robots, we're gonna look a bit, like in the smaller living creatures like the animal here. So this is what we call bio-inspired robotics. So basically in this research or in this kind of area, people start to look at how we could understand natures, how we can understand how nature moves, how could animal can perform highly complex behaviors and locomotions. And from that, we can try to translate our understandings from animal or living creatures into robotics. That's what we call bio-inspired robotics, such that we can obtain or achieve new robotics technologies. On the other hand, we could use this kind of robots to answer some hypotheses from bio studies, and that's what we call biorobotics. So basically, that's a kind of engineering inspired biologies. Today, I'm gonna try my best to walk you through this kind of three interesting living creatures. The first one is a kind of a cockroach. This is a very little insect with 6 legs. Another animal I'm interested in or we are working on is which we call a dung beetle. So this dung beetle is a very interesting animal because it has 6 legs, and especially not only for walking like a cockroach as you see down there, but it could also use the remaining legs to move a very heavy ball. Okay, so the simple question here is that how could such little animal like a dung beetle, the size something like this, but it could navigate, and also it could move the heavy ball even like 10 times of its body weight, or even heavier than that. The other one is interesting animal like the worm here. So it can claw on, like rough and also on the branch of tree. And we want to understand how these kind of living creatures can show these kind of complex behaviors. So if you look at the principle of animal locomotions, basically we can see this kind of 2 components, the first one and the second one here. So these are 2 main components. The first one here is about the biomechanics. Okay, this is the one down here. Biomechanics is basically the physics or the physical body of the living creatures that can perform actions and also can perceive information. It's like the body of the animals. While the body can perform the complex behaviors, the brain, which is on top here, could also generate a complex motor command to move the body. That's include like the high level control here and the locomotion control. So the locomotion control is a kind of the control that lets the system move, while the higher level control coming from the brain can try to steer the moving behaviors for complex navigation, for example. And here is a bit of, like some information of biomechanics. So the biomechanics in principle is consists of not only the body, but we cover muscles, the materials, and also even the structures, how the structure look like. Okay. While the locomotion control, in this case, we look at kind of the nerve system of the animals, that this nerve system can form the locomotions. It needs to coordinate this kind of, like 6 legs. When the animal need to be able to move, the nerve system should be able to coordinate these 6 legs to generate walking patterns. On top of this, we see this kind of the brain of the animal here. And if we look inside the locomotion circuits, we basically see this kind of the neuron system. So we see many neurons that talk to each other through the synaptic connections here. And what we have achieved in the past over my 15 years of research, we managed to translate this complex neural circuit from the animal here into digital circuit, if you like, for robot locomotion control. So by having this kind of neural-like networks, we can achieve this kind of locomotion of hexapod robots that can mimic the locomotion of cockroach. It can walk with 6 legs and it can change the locomotion patterns here. When it comes to different terrains, it can change the gates from fast gate to slower gates for having more stable locomotions. And interestingly, we have learned from nature that if you look at this example, this is the foot flight. Let's stop the movie first. If you look at this image, this is the foot fly on the left side here. Oops, sorry. This foot flight, if you leave it, if you let the foot fly freely fly in the flying chambers, we can see that sometimes the foot fly will fly to the left, sometimes it fly to the right, and so on and so forth. And the flying pattern, interestingly, is look like the chaotic behaviors, the behaviors that very complex. It has non-unique directional of flying. And inspired by this, we use these kind of chaotic like behaviors for controlling these robots. What we show in the past, we published this work in Nature Physics, showing that by using these bio-inspired flying strategies, we can let the robot free itself when it walk, and then suddenly one of the legs step into the hole. We let the system switch from normal locomotions into chaotic behaviors. By having this kind of chaotic like movement, the robot can by itself release the leg out of the hole. So now this is in the chaotic modes. And now suddenly after a few trials, it can just release by itself without human interfering. So, and that's, I think this is the kind of the beauty of the natures, that we can learn from natures, and then we can try to extract our knowledge, translate from natures into the real machines to make the thing more complex and more adaptive behaviors. Additionally, while we can achieve the basic locomotions, we could also generate even more complex behaviors. In this case, what I show here is that imagine if you need to, like walk from one location. Let's say this is the starting point, location A. You need to walk up to this point, okay? And then when you come to, like the junction or the decision points, you need to either turn left or turn right. Imagine if you need to navigate from Siam to Chulalongkorn, for example. For the first time, if you don't know how to move from Siam or to walk from Siam to Chulalongkorn, you might use, like the road sign saying that, okay, if you go to if you see the first corner, you should turn right because you see the road sign of the Chulalongkorn on the road. According to that, what we try to mimic this concept is that if you come to the decision unit, you need to remember that, okay, let's say if the road sign is here, this is, say, Chulalongkorn should turn right at the next corner, for example. The problem here is that if we cannot remember this road sign, we cannot move to the right here at these corners, okay? The interesting ingredients in our brain is that we could remember things even for either longer time or shorter times, and then we can reuse those informations afterwards. To achieve these complex behaviors like memory guided behavior like human can do, we implement or we develop this kind of artificial neural networks that it could allow this robot. You will see in this video that we let the robot walk from here, and at this point here now it walks and then it see the light. When it see the light, this light is information to indicate that the light is on the right side. The next corners is see it should turn right. And the complexity here is that now it walks and then the light turn off. Now this information disappear from the sensor sides, but the robots should be able still to remember that, okay, I have seen the light on the right side. And therefore, I need to later use that information when it comes to these corners to now turn right. Okay. And also before turning right here, maybe I just try to show this one more time. At this point, when it comes to these corners, okay. Okay, here at this point. So when it comes to this point, we turn on another light on the left side here. So this second light information indicate that the second corner, it should turn left because the light is on the left side. So because of this, we succeed to activate the sequential memory guided behavior. First, it turn right because it see the light on the right side, and then now it's gonna turn left because it see the second light on the left side. So this is a kind of the high level control that controlled by the memory capacity of the robots. The second problem we are looking at, and this is the work which is done by my student at VISTEC. So this is, imagine if you have a robot and this robot has many legs. Let's say it has 1, 2, 3 legs on each side. So in total, it has 6 legs. And if we let this robot walk, now, since the robot has only the eye at the front, in this case, when the hind legs hit the obstacle, only when it hit the obstacle, the robot can swing the leg in the air. This is the problem of robotics because you want to avoid the robot to get damage. In this case, if we have only the camera sensors at the front and we don't have the camera here, the robot cannot see the object in advance. And then you need to hit in order to feel that there's object, and then it can, swing the leg and to avoid the obstacle afterwards. How to solve this problem without hitting the obstacle, but can we let the robot swing the leg over the obstacle before hitting it? So we got this inspiration from the cats. Look at this cat video. So the cat can, basically it can see the obstacle here first, and then it can remember this obstacle, and then it can later execute. Here, if you look at this video one more time, you see that the hind leg doesn't hit the obstacle at all. So the cat can effectively navigate in the, like in the environment where there are many obstacles here. The trick that the cat could do, and people have found out that the cat basically, it can see the obstacle here. The same thing, but also what human can do. So it uses these informations and then it stores this information into the brain, okay? And afterwards, it doesn't see the obstacle anymore. When it comes to closer to the obstacle here, the brain activates the leg movement based on what it has seen before, okay? The nice thing is that the brain can activate the movement of the front legs and later the hind leg in the right time, okay? The question here is that how can we achieve this kind of memorization and activating or using that memories to activate the leg movement for robots. Here, the work of my PhD student at VISTEC. So we managed to develop the neural control or artificial neural networks that it can let the robot. In this case, we, instead of using the cameras, we let the robot feel the obstacle first by the front leg here. The front leg will hit the obstacles, and then this hitting information will transmit to the brain of the robot. Afterwards, this brain will remember this information, and then it will release information later to let the robot swing the middle and the hind leg at the right time. As you can see here, now the robot comes and then the middle leg doesn't touch the obstacle at all, and as well as the hind legs. Also, it can swing over the obstacle at the right moments. And if you change the locomotion speeds, the robot could also even learn. So in this case, the front leg hit the obstacle to get this information, while the hind leg and the middle, the middle and the hind leg can successfully step over the obstacle without hitting it. Okay. So, and once we have this kind of proactive behaviors, that's what we call proactive, means that the system can react a little bit earlier before coming to that situations. We let the robot navigate in this kind of the maze like terrains or many uneven terrain with many wood blocks here. So the robot can successfully and efficiently navigate on this by stepping over the obstacle, and at the same time, oops, maybe I just show this. Okay, so maybe the video is freezing, but anyway, so let's just wait for a few seconds. Otherwise, I might just switch off the presentation and then switch it on again. Now it seems to be that it's freezing. Let me end the presentations. I will open it again. Okay, so I'm sorry for that. Okay, so what I have discussed before is that we talk about using bio-inspired approach or the memory from the brain of the robot, which is inspired by cat, and to use that information for activating the locomotion afterwards. And here, when it navigates on the terrains, we develop what we call neural visualizations. This is the visualization that it can monitor the real brain of the robots. While the robot move, we can see the neuron activation in the brain such that we can understand what the robot thinks. So that is one of our aim, is that we don't want to build just only to have the machine that can perform complex behavior, but we want to understand how it thinks, such that we can later trust the machines when we want to use that in our real world situations. The next problem I want to touch is that, let me check on the time a little bit. Okay, good, we are still on the good time. The next problem I want to touch on is that why I'm saying that the brain is really good, really important to have complex behaviors. However, you could solve some complex tasks by only changing the body, okay? In this case, what I want to show here is that we try to have this robot walking on this narrow path, like the pipes. We put the pipe and then we want our robot to walk along the pipe. What you can see here is that if we just use the normal foot of the robot, which is like this small foot like this here, because the foot of each foot has a very small tip, and it creates very small contact point to the surface, and that will be very difficult if the robot cannot walk precisely on the pipe, and the robot will fail. To solve this problem, we look at natures. So we learned that this is the work in collaboration with other colleagues, also from Kiel University in Germany, and also from London South Bank in UK, and also in Iran. So we look at the animals. So we found that in crickets, for example, if you look at cricket here, so a cricket or insects, especially, they have very special foot. It can nicely walk on the tube-like structure, like the branch of the tree here. And we question ourselves that how could it achieve this? What is the principle of the foot of the insects? So we further look at the foot structure of the insects here. And we found that if you zoom in the foot structure of the insect here, you can see the fiber-like structures here of the insect. So the insect, it has the fibers like the layer here inside underneath of the foot. And having this kind of the fiber-like structures, the insects could easily deform its foot to curve its foot on the surface without complex control problem or without complex control signals. So taking this as our inspirations, we developed the foot of the robot, which it has like the fibers, like this kind of fiber with a certain angles here, by print with the 3D print material here. So this is what we call fin ray-like structures. And what we have shown here is that not only to use the insect-inspired fiber structure with some certain angle for the foot here, we could also propose that in fact, in the past, people know this kind of structures, that if you have triangle, and then if you have the fiber inside the triangle with this kind of 90-degree angle here, this is what we call fin rays. So this is a traditional fin rays that people use since 25 years ago. And people keep on using this kind of 90-degree fin ray structures like this. The nice thing of this is that if you have the force if you push the fin ray with the force, the fin rays try to curve towards the force. And because of this, if you put the fin ray on the foot of the robot, and when the foot has the force, as if it has this kind of the normal force here, then the fin ray can curve along the surface like this. However, we found that instead of using 90-degree like this here, we learned from insect that insect doesn't have this 90-degree angle here, but it has even other inclination angle. Okay. From this, we look precisely that maybe having different inclination angle could benefit for the system, that instead of need high force to bend the foot, you might need to apply a lower force because of structure can be easier to deform. And we found that instead of using 90-degree, in this case, we use just only 10-degree angle here from the horizontal lines. By having these structures, we successfully to let the robot use very less energies and can nicely grip the surface to stable locomote on this. So this is the work which we just released or published beginning of this year or end of last year's. And this work has been also applied to, instead of using the fin ray like structure with the insects inspired fiber angle here, we use this, we show that you can use this as a gripper here. Having these kind of grippers, you can grasp the object or you can grasp the fragile objects efficiently here. So, but if on the other hand, you use the traditional gripper, which is the stiff, it could destroy this kind of crispy or fragile object like this here. If you use standard gripper with a standard plastic build, it could easily destroy if you apply the same force. Because of this novel, we got the press release of this work, and it was on the front page of the journals. And basically, we propose that we can break the 25-year-old robotics paradigm by introducing this kind of new way of looking at the inclination angle here. Instead of using 90-degree, we show that you can incline this angle to other angle degree, which inspired by insects foot. And by having these new type of angle inclinations, you can require or use lower force to deform the foot such that the system can walk or behave more energy efficiently. The next problem I want to show here is that if you look at this image, what we want is that we want this robot, okay, to navigate in this complex environment. For example, it needs to be able to climb on the big pipe, and also it needs to walk under the tunnel here. And afterwards, it should be able to walk along the wall here. Okay. So that is a very difficult problem. If you try to think about programming, if you want to program the robot, especially this robot, it has 6 legs. For each leg, it has 3 motors. So what you need to do is that if you are an engineer, you need to sit down and think about how could you move these 16 motors, 18 motors in total, because it has 6 legs and each leg has 3 motors. So you need to control, or you need to program 18 motors such that the motor move in the way to make this robot walk on this kind of platform. Okay. Instead of sitting and then try to think about how to program this, can we come up with this kind of automatic programming? So this is in terms of machine learning. Can we let the robot basically learn by itself without pre-programming or predefined behaviors? Can we let the robot learn by itself that it needs to be able to climb or walk underneath this, to be able to climb along the side wall here, or even climb over this kind of big pipe? Can we let it think or find out by itself? So, and the answer is yes. So people have done that over the last 10, 20 years. So by using machine learning technique. For example, there's some works published in like this work published in Nature in 2015. They use simulations to let the robot or to let the machines try to learn by itself. The problem of traditional technique is that you can see that you need to run the computer for 2 weeks at least to get a good behaviors and then to get multiple complex behaviors such that you can reuse that later. Later in 2019, this is a really impressive and nice work. In 2019, here, they used another machine learning technique called reinforcement learning to let the robot try to learn how to, like start from scratch, try to learn to be able to walk at the end, like after a certain trials. In this case, they can decrease from 2 weeks to 10 hours, and also some other works that published in Science as well. So now we challenge ourselves is that, can we reduce this learning time even from hours to minutes? Okay, so because in the real world, you cannot wait to let the program run for weeks or hours such that you get a solution and reuse that. So we came up with this kind of what we call bio-inspired structures. So this is the neural structures that we learn from nature, that there are some few ingredients or few neuron structures that the nature or the animal would need to generate the locomotions. Based on that informations, we try to create this kind of the neural network structures as the basic structure for the system. And then we use on top of this fast machine learning technique to let the robot learn by itself. In this case, by using this approach, we can reduce from weeks or hours into minutes. We managed to let the robot, different robots learn to walk. Like in this case, this is a dung beetle-like robot, or hexapod robot, or even quadruped robot, learn within like 13 to 15 minutes. And excitingly, we recently also we manage. So this is the kind of the model patterns that the learning system try to shape the patterns of this robot while walking. Excitingly, now we found another improvement on this. We can even reduce the time. Now we can manage within less than 10 minutes. So with this work, we has also test on the real robots. Here is on the top is the simulations. And after we get these behaviors, we can replicate and translate these behaviors into real robots, such that you can see that the simulation and the real robot, I just run this a little bit faster, is a kind of comparable. So the robot can walk on the floor, and when it see these obstacles, you will see it try to step over the obstacles, and similarly to the simulation, the same result has been replicated on the real robot. And it can step down the obstacles. And if it comes to this kind of higher obstacle or different steps, it could also manage to do that without relearning. So that is a kind of the efficient behaviors with the less number of data that we achieve to manage to reproduce for complex behaviors. We let the robot learn on the different situations such that we can have collections of different behaviors. For example, walking between the walls, walk under the obstacles, navigate over the big pipe, and then locomote to navigate from the green ball to the yellow ball and the red ball, and also step over the obstacles. So in this case, we can use the fast machine learning technique to let the robot learn within about 10 minutes. Afterwards, we implement these learned behaviors into the robot. So this is the simulations. Now we are working on testing this on the real robot. So the robot, once it see the walls, in this case, we as a higher level control, we are users to activate these behaviors. So then the robot start to use its legs to push against the wall such that it can have enough frictions to hold itself while walking along the side wall. And I just go a little bit faster. Now when it see the obstacles, it can increase the body height and then walk over the obstacle or even step over the obstacle like this. And I just go a bit faster here. It can also even go down the ramp here. And when it comes to the pipe, so the leg need to change the pattern such that it can also curve itself to stay on the pipe stably and to be able to walk along the pipe. So, and when it comes to this kind of obstacles, it can lower the body down and activate the new learned behaviors that it have learned before. So with this approach, we test what happens if we let the robot walk, and then you will see that now we move one leg, or when it comes to this point, we activate the program saying that this leg is broken. Now this leg is broken. Now we lift one leg. So the robot basically walk with 5 legs. With this control technique, the robot can efficiently readapt to get the new locomotion behaviors. And even now we reactivate the leg back and it come back to the 6 legs. So it can nicely and robustly walk when it has also a broken leg. So with this work, we got the press release again at the Nature Machine Learning's beginning of February, and with other press release on that. So the next project I want to share with you is about the dung beetle project. So this is European projects. I'm working together with other universities in Sweden, so, with Lund, Stockholm, and Kiel universities. So what we look at here is that if you look at these little insects here, this is the dung beetle, and this is the robot that we built based on this animal. So you can see that the size like 10 times of the robot, of the animal size. So this is our research team, and Bing Puong, he's my PhD student at VISTEC, who is working on the locomotion control of these dung beetles. This is other project partner from Germany and also from Sweden, and also my colleagues in Denmark. They also involved in these projects. So basically in this work or in this project, we try to learn from nature here. We look at how animals move. And then first thing is that we want to look at inside the structure of the animals. What kind of its biomechanics, the structure of the animal, and then we try to replicate these structures into robotics models. And also we want to get the locomotion behavior and navigation behavior of this animal into robots. So I will show you some results today. So if you look at the video, this is a very impressive. So what we did here, so this is the work we did in South Africa. We flew there like two years ago. And then we make a video where we make a small ramp here, and then we let this dung beetle try to roll the ball. And as you can see here is that when it roll the ball, it basically is kind of walking backwards and use the hind legs and the middle legs try to push as the fingers or the arms try to push the objects, while the 2 front legs still make it as the normal legs to walk or transport the ball. So with this, we look at the structure of the dung beetle such that we can replicate these structures of the dung beetle into our robotics system here. Okay. So first, what we did is that in collaboration with my colleague in Kiel University, Professor Prof and his PhD students, they perform the micro CT scans. So basically we take the dung beetle and then we scan it, and in order to see the structures and the leg orientations. Afterwards, we replicate this or we scale the structure of the dung beetle up to the robots like 10 times. And after we have the robot model, or bio-robotics model here. We look at how the dung beetle walk here, and then we try to replicate the dung beetle movement. This is the work of my PhD student, Bing Quang Liang at VISTEC. So we look at the dung beetle, how it walks, and then we try to create an artificial neural networks to mimic the dung beetle movement on the simulations. And this is the locomotion diagram where you can see the leg number 1, number 2, number 3, and the right leg. So in total, the animal and the robot has 6 legs. So therefore, you see this kind of 6 rows. And the black means the foot is on the ground. The white means the foot is in the air. Okay, there's a swing and stand period for locomotions. And we can see that the locomotion that the robot perform and the dung beetle perform is quite comparable. It performs like a tripod where 3 legs here, here, and here stay on the ground, while the other 3 legs here, here, and here swing in the air, similarly to the robots that we could replicate from the animal. And now we test on the real robots to see the locomotion behaviors. So the next thing is that, okay, what about rolling a ball? Okay, so we can see that the dung beetle can walk. And what about rolling the ball? So what we did here is that we look at the video of the dung beetle rolling the ball. We perform visual inspections here. So and after looking at the video many hours, my PhD student Bing Quang, so he's really clever. He came up with the 4 rules. After looking at this dung beetle rolling the ball, he came up with 4 rules and tried to identify that this is the first time we discovered that. So this is the 4 secret rules that we propose and publish in the scientific reports here. So we found that in order to success rolling the ball, the dung beetles usually basically 2 front legs here. This is the 2 front leg here, the left leg and the right leg. They also perform like alternating behaviors. They try to step not at the same times. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing, we found that in the middle leg here, the left and the right leg here, they try to also step differently here, but the middle leg here and the high leg in the opposite side, they try to synchronize each other to step at the same period, like this crossing here. Okay, according to that, we try to translate those rules into our robot simulations to see whether we could manage to at least to make the robot roll the ball. So, and nicely, now we managed to make the robot using those kind of rules with some basic implementations to make the robot roll the ball and also roll up a slope. So now we are implementing this behavior into the real robots. So I hope that within these years, I could release this good news on the real robot experiments. Besides locomotion and object manipulations or moving the objects here, we look at another problem here now. So if you look at these videos, you can see that the dung beetle could also nicely and quickly search for the food source. And after it found the pellet or the foods, then it can, like move the food and then move it back to the net. Okay. So now you can see that the dung beetle go beyond this spot. So this is the locations that the dung beetle needs to put the food in there. Okay, that's basically its nets. When we look at this video here, okay, so it might be that I have to again, sorry, I have to restart my presentation again. Okay, so let me reopen that. So basically, when you see this behaviors of the dung beetle that it can, like navigate and interestingly search for the locations here. Okay, so now it's back. So the dung beetle can first, it can perform random move to search for the food source, and once it found the food, it just try to like move the food back to the spot or to the nets. And here, for the first time, it might miss the spot. Okay, and then it try to wander around to search again. Now it found the locations. Then the next time, interestingly, it could come immediately very straight forwards to the food source. Okay, and now from here it just go very straight, back to the food source. Sorry, the home. Okay, now here. So after looking at this, we ask ourselves how such a little animal can realize these robust navigations. Also, the first thing is that the dung beetle, they don't have GPS like what we have. So basically right now we use Google Map, we use GPS to say where should we go or how should we go from A to B, right? So basically just follow the GPS. But interestingly, dung beetle, they don't have the GPS. The question here is that how could they first search for the food source, and after that, how can it remember, how can they remember the path back? To realize this, we developed this kind of the control technique. So I will not go into details. So this is the work of my former postdoc. So we introduced a new control technique that it can captures and remember the path that the robot has been, and then reproduce those paths with the final vectors. So here with this technique, you will see that the robot first, it just perform a kind of random move, and then when it see the obstacle, it's just turn away. And now it move, and then this time it see the object, which is the food. Once it see the food, we say that now you should need to go back by walking backwards to the home, like the dung beetle, and now it walk more or less like straight back to this home. So that is the path. It move, and then the red part is the final part that it navigate back. And yeah, this is another test. When the robot walk, let's say from the food source or from the home to the foods, and then now it just walk back in this case it just start to deviate, and after it start to deviate, it can recollect the walking behaviors or the navigation path by itself to successfully come back home here. So the red part is like from the food source or the target back to the home. And here we test indoor. In this case, in this work, we don't use GPS. So we use this so-called path integration technique. So here it move, and then it see the ball, and then it just walk backwards home. Okay, so I believe that that type technique could be an effective technique that we could later use for the navigation, such that the robot can also reliably navigate even without the car could navigate reliably without GPS in case of going to the tunnel, for example. So this is another work I want to share in terms of the pipe climbing robot. When you want to have a robot, a small tiny robot that can perform pipe climbing for pipe inspection for pipe for oil and gas industry. So typical technique is that you either use inspectors here to go there and then inspect the pipe, or you build a robot that claw inside the pipe. To do this, if you use the robot clawing inside the pipe, you need to stop the plant, and that will be the time consuming, and it's kind of expensive, and or even use inspectors. So we came up with a new technique or another solutions where we, instead of using humans or put the robot inside the pipe, we build a worm-like robot such that the robot can claw on the pipe. So we got inspiration from the worm. We look at the worm, that the worm can nicely, like walk on top of the tree branch. And this is our worm-like robots. And here we use the electromagnets as the feet of the robot, such that the robot, in this case, it needs to navigate on the steel. So with these kind of the worm-like structures and electromagnets, the robot can stick on the steel. And if you see the obstacle here, it could step over the obstacles. So that could be a potential machines for oil and gas inspections in the oil and gas industry. So that's what I have shared with you. Basically, we look from natures and we learn from natures, and then we try to gain our scientific knowledge from learning from natures, and then we want to use this from nature to science and build up our new robotics technology for humanities. So now I have a few slides to share. For example, here, this is the work of also my PhD student at VISTEC. So we look at now we scale it up from insects to human-like locomotions. So this is the work where we have bipedal robots. And the problem here is that if we want to build a machines for rehabilitations for the patients who has a stroke, when they walk with different step lengths, or basically their walking gait is a kind of asymmetry. So to develop the exoskeletons or the robot that can do assist non-equal gait locomotion of stroke people, we start from looking at this simple bipedal robot. And in this case, we use the mask at one leg to make asymmetry patterns. So basically the left leg and the right leg, they are not equal. Okay, they have different weights. And we develop the control technique that can make the robot walk and also readapt to the new added weight to the robot. And even we switch off sensors back for the robot can maintain its motion. Even when we switch or change the treadmill speeds, the robot could also readapt its locomotions on the fly, like in real time. With this, we're translating this control technique from bipedal robot into exoskeletons. This is the project called Exowisd. So this is the work in collaboration with the Rama Hospital and Mahidol universities, where we want to have these exoskeletons for humans to regain the walking ability of the humans, such that the first thing is exoskeletons, it need to be able to learn how human walk by itself. You don't need to sit and then program it. So once you wear the exoskeleton and then you start to do some kind of your own movement, after a few steps, the exoskeleton should be able to learn how you walk, to learn to capture your locomotion behaviors. And even you change the speed of the treadmill here or walk up and down stairs, the system should be able to readapt to those new situations. So, and here, this is our research facility at VISTEC. This is our gate lab at VISTEC here. So we have the force plate on the stairs, and we have exoskeletons, and also we have these motion captures that you can track the human movements. And when the subjects come to this treadmill here, we have the belt, the split belt treadmill, where you can change the speeds on the left and on the right belts independently. This can be used to simulate a kind of asymmetric locomotion for the stroke patients. You could also increase the angle of the treadmills here, and that's with these facilities now we have some result, which maybe later I could share with you, that the exoskeletons can now, this is the kind of the learning mode. So you wear the exoskeletons and then you try to walk with it. Basically, when you walk with the exoskeleton, you teach it how you would like to walk. And after a few minutes of learning periods, the exoskeleton can remember your locomotion, and then it can use that to assist your locomotion afterwards. So what I have shared with you today, basically, this is kind of my main research that I cover from Bioinspired Robotics here, looking at natures and also inspection robotics. And lastly, I touch a little bit on the medical robotics here. So this is our three main research at VISTEC. So right now we have the Research Center for Advanced Robotic and Intelligence Automation at VISTEC, or ARIA here. In fact, we have also other domain, which in total we have, in total, we have what we call 7 wonders of robotics. So here we have also industrial robotics, soft robotics, cognitive robotics, and also service robotics that we have also researched there. So lastly, I want to show you the last video that this is the demo that we have shown that we can think of using different robots while the robot running, video running. I just Okay, so this is the video where we show that use different robots, like the drones here, to fly and to transport the objects above the ground. And when it comes to certain locations, the drone can drop the objects. And here the drone can autonomously sense the commands to tell that my mission is complete. And then the mobile robot will come. I just go a bit faster. Mobile robot will come from the understanding from the drone communications, and then it come and then to pick up this object by itself. And once it sees the object, it grabs the objects, and then it will move to the treadmill or to the belt here. And then when the robot places the object on the belt, it sends the command saying that my mission is complete, and then the belt will autonomously move to the second spot. And once the camera sees the objects, it sends the command from the belt to the conveyor belt to the robot arms to give this to the inspectors. And after the inspector will inspect the objects or the item here. And then he can, like after inspections, he can send the object back, and the robot arm can place the object into the chair. So basically, here we show that you can exploit different features of different robots to do this kind of logistic task. So with this, I would like to end up my talk. And basically, I hope that I give you a bit of inspirations where we can learn from nature to find a new technology for robotics. And I believe that nature could be a seed of good information that we can build up our robot in the future to become our friends. So with this, I would like to thank for your attentions.
Thank you so much, Professor Poramate. So it's inspiring and also very exciting. I really envy you for, saying you enjoy this kind of work. We may not have time for a question, but I would like to ask just one question. You've been working with many kind of animals, observing the motion, and try to mimic, using robot to mimic the motion. Did you find that the natural motion that is given by the nature or by God is already the optimal one, or would you be able to even improve it?
This is a really good question. So I would say the motion of nature is not optimal. So the nature try to find a solution that good enough to survive. So even we mimic those locomotion for robots, when we put those also further adjust or fine tunes to fit to the robots. And I have discussed this also problem to my various colleagues. So we come to the conclusion that there's no unique optimal solution in nature. So that's what we do. Even I would say, if depend on which scale, if we look at the macro scale, like the big scale, basically we walk fat, thin, they walk differently. And that's also how we change our morphology over generation.
Anybody would like to ask a question?
No,
Okay,
I just amazed by the cool robot technology.
I think we got a few questions also from our faculty. Yeah, but I think one of the questions, actually I had the same one, but also was for me already, Yeah, so the thing that you implement in your robot is actually further adjust, right? It's not like the like so replication of the insect one in the nature, right? I think we got that same question from a faculty too.
Yes, yes, exactly. And the trick, actually, this is a good point. I could add one on that. The trick we adjust that is that by using the sensor feedback,
Okay.
because imagine that you can exactly replicate the movement, but maybe the movement you replicate is maybe the leg step too low or too high. In this case, we could use the foot contact to confirm the movement that what you replicate, is it good or bad? The robot can feel the ground by the foot contact and readjust that motor patterns little by little.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think your work is super interesting. Yeah, I hope we have time to talk after this, but anyway, it's really eye-opening.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes.
Well, thank
Yes.
you so much, Professor Poramate, and of course, I wish that when you come to Bangkok or Thailand, you visit us, and
Yes,
our
sure.
students be able
Yes.
to talk to you.
Yes.
I hope you don't mind if we share this, we record this, and we could share this among
Yeah,
our
sure,
students.
sure.
It's okay,
Yeah,
right?
sure. Please,
Okay.
please. Yes.
Thank
yes.
you so much. So with this,
Yes.
I would like to sincerely thank you, and of course VISTEC, the president of VISTEC, Ajahn Chamrat, for kindly coordinate for your presence here.
Yes.
So we really we are grateful. Our students are grateful that you at least give them some inspiring, so that they would be able to see the future. What are the available for them.
Yes.
So thank you so much. We have to adjourn, and I wish you well and being safe in Denmark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and my pleasure to be here today. And yeah, so I hope to see everyone. Yeah, soon. Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.